And today on Q News, we are honored to host a special guest whose voice resonates at the heart of European diplomacy. Joining us for an exclusive interview is His Excellency the Ambassador of Germany to Egypt, Mr. Jürgen Scholz. As Europe faces shifting geopolitical dynamics and global cooperation grows more vital, Germany continues to play a key role in regional dialogue, economic partnership, and multilateral diplomacy. In this exclusive sit-down, we delve into the future of Egypt-German relations, trade and investment opportunities, and Berlin's position on pressing regional issues.
Thank you, Rana. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it's a pleasure to welcome His Excellency the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to Egypt, Mr. Jürgen Scholz, a seasoned diplomat with a distinguished career in international relations. His Excellency represents one of Europe's most influential nations at a time of critical global and regional transformation. From economic cooperation to multilateral diplomacy, Germany continues to play a pivotal role on the world stage. And tonight, we are honored here on Q News to hear directly from its highest representative here in Cairo, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to Q News.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor and a great privilege to be with you tonight. Thank you.
Pleasure is ours. Your Excellency, now, this month actually marks the first anniversary of you assuming your diplomatic mission here in Egypt as an ambassador. And it is of no surprise because you're no stranger to critical times and political developments around the world. It comes at a globally and regionally turbulent time. Now, from your perspective, what are the characteristics that really define the Egyptian-German bilateral relations, be it politically, economically, and culturally as well?
Well, thank you for the question. Let me start by saying that I think, first of all, I would like to say that our relations, bilateral relations between Egypt and Germany are long-standing relations. We go back a very long time, many, many decades, and we are proud to be able to say that. And I would say the basic pillar of our relationship is twofold. And it is on one hand mutual respect, and on the other hand, of course, also shared interests. And coming back to your question, politically, we very much greatly value the exchange with the Egyptian side. We see that Egypt is playing a pivotal role in these turbulent times, and we see Egypt really as an anchor of stability in a very, very unstable region. So this is something extremely important from a German point of view. Mm-hmm. Economically, Egypt is a very important economic partner to us, and we have a multitude of economic relations. Let me just give you one example. We have more than 1,600 German companies here in Egypt. That's a very high number. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, speaks for itself. So many, many German companies see the benefit of being in Egypt. Obviously, Egyptian partners see the same benefit on their side. So this is of mutual benefit. And culturally, we have an incredible depth of cultural exchanges. We have many, many German schools here in Egypt. Some of them are quite renowned. We have now 2 German Egyptian universities with a total number of more than 18,000 students. This is basically globally unheard of. We have no other country that Germany has such a high number of transnational students with. So this shows, I think, that there is incredible interest in both sides. And of course, this is no reason for complacency. We want to take the next step and continue to strengthen and increase that cooperation further.
Yes. Your Excellency, now, next month, the United Nations General Assembly will be convening, and everybody's anticipating the recognition of a Palestinian statehood by 15 countries, some of them conditionally and some unconditionally. What is the German stance and the commentary and the German hopes of what can be achieved by a Palestinian statehood recognition at the UN General Assembly?
Well, we follow this with great interest, and this is a very serious but also extremely complicated issue, of course. Germany has been advocating the two-state solution for many, many decades. We are convinced that only a two-state solution is the only way to provide for sustainable long-term stability and peace in the Middle East. There's no question about it. Now, the issue of recognition is a bit more difficult because some countries think that it is now time to recognize the state of Israel, the statehood, and other countries still think that this may be something that should happen a little bit later. The German position is that we are very much for a two-state solution. We want to see the Palestinian state. We are absolutely convinced that this is necessary for peace and stability in the Middle East. But at the same time, we have to recognize the realities. And the reality is that there is no Palestinian state to speak of as we speak today. Mm-hmm. So we would like to recognize the Palestinian state as soon as it exists, as soon as there's a perspective for what we can then define as a Palestinian state. And we feel that this should be at the end of a negotiated process. This is our position right now, but of course we also take note of the very serious position of other partners, including many EU partners who see this differently. This is a debate that we're also going to have, that we're having in Germany as we speak. But right now, as we speak, I can only tell you that the position of the German government is, yes, we want to recognize the Palestinian state. We should start with this process to define this state, but we will only recognize the state of Palestine as soon as we know a little bit better what this means.
Yes, well, it has to start with a ceasefire, and Egypt has been engaged in ceasefire negotiations, really a lot of mediation efforts, also pushing through the humanitarian channels. So what sort of cooperation can Egypt and Germany promote through the humanitarian channels, through international law, can secure a sustainable support for the people in Gaza?
Yes, I would agree with what you just said. I think the humanitarian situation in Gaza is appalling. Mm-hmm. It's unacceptable. That is absolutely clear. And this cannot go on like this. The question is, what do you do about it to change that? And let me start by saying that we greatly value the Egyptian efforts for ceasefire, for improving the humanitarian situation, for the reconstruction of Gaza, all this. Egypt has been incredibly active in the last months, and we greatly appreciate that. Be it the mediation efforts together with the US and Qatar on achieving a ceasefire, be it the reconciliation efforts between Fatah and Hamas, here in Cairo too, be it the humanitarian efforts. Most of the humanitarian aid that has gone to Gaza in the past months has gone through Egypt, of course. And I've been to Arish several times and know how many trucks are waiting to basically get into Gaza. And this is the next step. So I think Egypt and Germany share the same goals. We want a ceasefire. We want to improve the humanitarian situation of the suffering people in Gaza. We want to see reconstruction of Gaza, and we want to see lasting peace. So I think we share these goals. And this is why we have a broad common ground between Egypt and Germany. We do our part. We have a special relationship to our Israeli partners, of course. My boss, the foreign minister, talks to the Israeli foreign minister almost every day to achieve these goals. But as you know, it is not quite easy in the current situation to achieve the goals both Egypt and Germany want to achieve. But I can assure you, we work on this very hard every day.
Yes, well, as you've mentioned, Your Excellency, trucks of humanitarian aid are lined up to enter through the Rafah border crossing of Karam Abu Salim. A lot of other parties are trying to claim that there have been delays from the Egyptian side, which is very untrue. How do you explain these delays, or the other parties, why are they starting campaigns against the humanitarian convoys from the Egyptian side into Gaza?
Well, it is clear to us that Egypt is very helpful in providing humanitarian aid. As I said, most of the humanitarian aid since the 7th of October 2023 has gone through Egypt. I think I don't need to go into more details, and know that Egypt has every interest to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. I recall very vividly the humanitarian conference Egypt has hosted in December last year, which was a high-level conference, had the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, many other international representatives. It was a great conference, and we all want to see the same result, and Egypt plays a very, very constructive role. So I don't want to go into too many details of this campaign that you mentioned. I don't know where it's coming from, but it is clear that Egypt is doing everything in its power to assist the suffering people in Gaza, and so do we within our means.
Well, the German Foreign Minister Weidefeld also mentioned that Germany, alongside France and the UK, will be engaging as well in Iranian nuclear negotiations, along with the US. Now, what role can Germany, do you feel, can realistically play in terms of easing tensions between Iran and Israel?
Well, you know, if you look back to the history of this file, then I would say that the E3, the European three, as we called them at the time, the UK was in the European Union at the point, France, the UK, and Germany were quite instrumental to bringing about the agreement on a nuclear deal, the so-called JCPOA. It's a technical term for that. That was achieved after many, many, many years of negotiations with Iran, and that at least led to some alleviation of the situation and some easing of tensions at that point. Then, of course, some of the other parties, the US in particular, left that agreement to our regret. And now we have to see where we are. But I think just given the history of also Germany being one of the closest negotiators with Iran on that particular issue shows that we can play our role. Of course, there are many other actors that are important, but we don't overestimate our role, but we are ready because we see the importance and the significance of this file to offer our services. And we do have also channels to Tehran that some of our partners do not have, and we are ready to try to engage into talks over this nuclear file again. This is one of the most complicated files in diplomacy, as you know, but we also see the importance and significance, and if there's anything we can do, we are ready to do it.
Your Excellency, Egypt has hosted COP27. Egypt is very passionate and determined about the environmental file. It also has its own sustainable development goals, the vision slated for 2030 now. Germany is very well known for its green energy and eco-friendly directions and strategies. What sort of collaboration do you feel Egypt and Germany can benefit each other from such a German experience?
Well, I think we already have a good level of cooperation on that, also following the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, of course. Germany and Egypt, I think, are cooperating well. We very much support the agenda, the vision for 2030 that you just mentioned. We very much support the idea, the goal of sustainable economic development, and of course also the project of a green transition that Egypt has committed to. And we are prepared to cooperate with Egypt in all these areas to strengthen the development of renewable energies. We actually think that Egypt could become a hub for renewable energy in the Middle East and the Mediterranean. So I think we see a great potential there. We want to also increase our cooperation in other areas like, let's say, resilient agriculture, and also to think about jointly with our Egyptian counterparts of how we can make the Egyptian economy maybe more resilient to the impacts of climate change. So all these things we are very open to, We also look into many other things like, transfer of knowledge, joint research, and all these things. So we are very open because, as you said, this is something that is key to Egypt, but it's certainly also clearly a key issue to Germany.
Mr. Schulz, Germany has long been a pillar of democratic values and international diplomacy. Now, in a time of global polarization, how is Germany recalibrating its foreign policy, especially towards the Middle East?
Well, I think this is a question that is not really new. I think the Middle East is changing all the time. Germany, Europe is changing at the same time. So we have to do this as diplomats, as well as our politicians have to do this constantly. And we are trying to be conscient of latest development. We try to understand our partners. We try to see where they're coming from in the Middle East, but also other actors like in the US, where they are coming from, and other influential players who play a very important role. So we try to basically adapt our foreign policy on a daily basis, but of course more strategically also on a broader scale to see what are the priorities today. And this is not a, let's say, given playbook that we follow, but things change sometimes so quickly that you always have to adapt your policy, of course, based on certain principles that are the core of our Middle Eastern policy that will not change.
Well, one final question, Your Excellency. Now, your diplomatic career spans for over 34 years, since 1991. You've served in many key positions, different countries, with different files and missions, from Washington to NATO as well. What would you say is your personal experience, professional experience, that shaped your perspective on diplomacy up until now as an ambassador here to Egypt?
Well, that's a very easy question for me, because I grew up in a divided Germany. I grew up in a time when we had two Germanys. We had the Federal Republic and the DDR, the German Democratic Republic. And that was the biggest trauma for our country for more than 30 years. And I remember very, very vividly that many people were convinced at that point that the question that was then known to many people as the German question, and they meant the wall in Berlin and the division, that this was absolutely unsolvable and that this will never be solved. And I grew up with many people who are convinced that the Berlin Wall will be there for another 200, 300, 400 years. So if you ask me about the one experience that has shaped my thinking and my diplomatic activities, if you want, then this is the fact that there's no problem in the world, even if it may look as unsolvable today, and even if it may have looked unsolvable for decades, that cannot be resolved all of a sudden very quickly if the circumstances change and if the right actors take the right decisions. And of course I'm talking about the Middle East, and of course I'm talking about the very, very deeply rooted issues here. I think the most important thing is never give up, never lose hope, because many people told me that the Berlin Wall will be there for the rest of my life and for the rest of the lives of my children and the grandchildren and all the rest of it. And all of a sudden, within a year or two, things changed, and this wall came down. Germany was reunited. Europe was divided. All of a sudden, Europe was reunited. So even in a situation where you think that you don't see a solution right now, and where people think about solutions and it seems unsolvable, this is the one take I take from that personal experience. No, things are possible, change is possible, and it's our duty and our job to work towards that.
Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, on this hopeful and resilient note, unfortunately, we come to the end of our interview with His Excellency, the German Ambassador to Egypt, Mr. Jürgen Schulz. Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us, and it has been a pleasure. and happy anniversary on your first year as an ambassador to Egypt.